Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So we will continue on with this video, the interaction between David Wood and Sheikh Uthman. In the previous video, we have watched the main question about universal freedom of religion in Islam and the issue of murtad. So if you haven't watched that already, it is in the previous video, and we will continue on with the next question. So without further ado, let's watch.
I'll tell you what, why don't you get to your other points first?
Just got two more here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so point 3, so this is misconception. Number 3, Islam permits terrorism. And the verse that's used, I'll go ahead and read the line before it.
Go ahead.
Says the Quran clearly demonstrates the seriousness of killing an innocent person and emphasizes the value of human life.
Good, yeah.
Surah 5 verse 32, if anyone murders an innocent person, it will be as if he has murdered the whole of humanity.
Yeah.
And if anyone saves a person, it will be as if he has saved the whole of humanity.
Excellent.
And there's quotation marks, there's no dots there. Do you believe that is two questions. Do you believe that is an accurate quotation of that verse?
Okay.
And 2, do you believe that the meaning is represented correctly here as far as the context of the passage in the Quran? Because you got the story of Cain and Abel right afterwards, and then you got sort of lessons drawn right after that.
So I didn't make this flyer, so I just want you to be clear. I don't know which translation or how they're using.
None.
But, I'm sorry, what?
This can't possibly be a translation.
It's got to be some translation. I mean, it's not in Arabic, right?
They left so many things out of that verse.
But again,
they could call it a paraphrase or something.
Right,
like
right.
that.
So you know and I know there are also paraphrased Bibles. I have one at home that paraphrases meanings and their verses throughout the Bible. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So if they're using something like that, that's up to them. But what about this ayah? What problem do you have? Does the Quran not forbid killing people here?
Not in a way that would condemn terrorism.
So let's look at an Arabic Quran, right? Surah 5, right?
This is thematic translation. What's that mean?
It takes themes by paragraph.
Okay.
So look it up.
What is your visit?
532.
Okay.
So read it.
Okay. So Surah 5 verse 32. That is why we ordained for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life.
Sure.
So that's first part that they cut out, that this was children of Israel.
Well, that's not cut out. I mean, again, so some verses are like half a page to quote a part of that verse, as long as it doesn't change away from the meaning. Whatever was ordained. Let me just explain it.
It's actually a quotation from the Talmud here, not the
Oh, no, you poor guy. You don't understand.
This is
I got you.
This is a quotation from Mishnah Sanhedrin chapter 4.
Okay, so let me explain this to you. This is not Mishnah, Sanhedrin, or the Talmud. Okay? This is the Quran. Okay? This is not from the Talmud. This is the words of Allah revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, you're talking to a Muslim, so yes, my belief, bro. But is this in your hand, the Talmud or the Quran?
Yeah, but it says revealed to the children of Israel.
Sure.
So it's a revelation that the children of Israel have.
So let me
have that. It's in the Talmud.
I got you, but this is not from the Talmud. This is from the Quran. This is chapter Al-Ma'idah that is in the Quran. Okay? Now, those things that Allah reveals to us about what was revealed to the people of Bani Israel is in the Quran as a benefit for us as well. Those things we take rulings from, depending on whether they were specific for them or not. And this is one of the verses where Allah has revealed a guidance for us in the Quran. Okay?
Yeah.
So now, if I was to use like Ayatul Kursi or one of those very long ayat, and I use a part of the ayat that is relevant to the subject, this is not cutting or leaving out. Do you understand what that means?
You normally indicate when you're cutting into a verse and cutting out. You know what I mean? You
sure.
put dot, then part of it.
So this is again your misconception. Let me just explain this to you now, because see, I have to educate you about so many things so you can understand. When the Quran was revealed, there are ayat that have wuquf. You know what a waqf is? You probably don't. So now you have where a subject matter begins and ends. Sometimes you have multiple of those in one verse. Are you understanding me? Sometimes you have a verse that the next verse completes the meaning. Okay?
Okay.
Wailul lil musallin, the ayah where it says the ones who pray are cursed, you have to look at the next verse. يعني هم عن صلاتهم ساهون, they are upon their prayer, and they're lazy, they're not careful about their salah, right? So now if you don't understand the second verse, you don't understand the first. But on the other hand, there are verses that are almost half a page that have many different contexts within it. So if you take from the meaning that is complete, nothing wrong with that. Are you educated now on that? No?
No.
May Allah
Not a bit,
educate you then.
because
Okay.
they keep taking stuff out of the middle as well.
So that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So read the ayah.
If you're
So-
going to do that, you can make any verse say anything you want.
No, you can't. Because
Of course
there are
you can.
wuquf.
I could take a verse and chop a bunch of parts out of
You
it.
didn't understand what I said. See, this is what a problem. You know what a waqf is? You don't. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay.
You cannot just take things out. You have to look at where you can stop,
Okay.
and where the subject matter completes. Have you ever got an Arabic?
no, this
See,
is-
like your ignorance is a problem
This
here,
is-
because
this-
you see what this is? This letter here. Do you know what that is?
No, go ahead.
This is called a jim.
Okay.
All right. Why is it there? This is so that it's jais to stop there. You know what that means?
So you're saying there's these stops all through
Yes.
the middle of this verse?
Yeah, not just this verse, throughout
No,
the
but
Quran.
this verse.
Okay, so let's look at
Because the verse doesn't make any sense without the context. Because it
About
says,
this
"That
being
is
Ben
why."
Israel?
It says that is why we are
Okay.
doing for the children of Israel. So it's talking about the story
Okay.
about the bird showing Cain how to bury his brother.
Sure,
Right?
but the fact that Allah forbid killing man and put the sin of killing
yeah,
one person.
that's
let me
fine.
let me
It's the
finish. Let me
exceptions here.
finish.
Go ahead.
Let me finish. That there is not related just in that context. That hukam, that if you kill one person, it's like killing all of mankind unjustly, is going to be applicable till the day of judgment.
By the way, do you know where that came from in the Talmud? I'm not saying
I do
this
not.
came from the Talmud.
Okay, I'm
It's
glad you're
interesting
not.
because it's actually a commentary on the story of Cain and Abel.
Okay,
It wasn't supposed to be revelation
in the
was-
Talmud you're talking about.
in the Talmud. It was a
Okay.
commentary on the story of Cain and Abel.
Okay,
And the reason the rabbi said this was he said that when God says your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground,
Okay.
blood there is plural. So it's
Okay.
your brother's bloods cries out to me from the ground. And so the rabbi who's commenting on it, he says this is how God is telling us that it's not just the person you kill, it's all future generations of that person. It's all of his bloods, not his blood, it's all of the bloods of his future descendants. So it's actually a commentary from a rabbi in the Talmud that ends up in the Quran. But all of that is not the point here, right? So
okay.
you're saying...
So again,
No,
that-
let me just read,
okay.
read the verse. We'll
Go
talk
ahead.
about the parts
Go
that
ahead.
are
Go
cut
ahead.
out.
Go ahead.
I understand that you don't always need to quote an entire verse.
Okay, good. So at least you're clear there.
Yeah. When it says, so that is why we ordained for the children of Israel, that part gets cut off and starts here, right? But then, notice, whoever takes a life, and then we have, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, that part gets cut out. It will be as if they killed all of humanity. And whoever saves a life, it will be as if they saved all of humanity.
Okay.
So that's kind of problem one, is this verse is allowing killing people for certain crimes,
Okay.
namely murder or for spreading mischief in the land. So notice
Okay.
they cut all
Sure.
of that out.
They didn't. But let me explain it to you, because you apparently don't understand how translations are done. So I will explain it to you now. Okay. So what does it say here? من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل. So we ordained on Ben Israel إنه. Now you see the wow here. So anyway, I mean,
Just tell me what the reason is for cutting it out.
sure, I will explain it to you. من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض. Whoever kills somebody that is not in response to either them having killed somebody or spreading mischief on earth, right?
Okay.
So what does it say here? If anybody murders what?
An innocent person.
An innocent
It's a
person.
paraphrasing.
Yes,
The not
yes,
that.
yes, yes. And innocent here shows that this is not general, that if it's for a crime, then that would not be included here.
Okay.
Now you're clear?
Yeah.
So there is no cutting. It is understanding with the word innocent here representing that meaning. No, let me finish.
Okay. This is basically whether the pamphlet actually represent the Quran accurately, which I do agree. It is still accurate. But I do also get the point from David Wood, because I personally prefer, especially if they present it as if that is actually a direct translation of the verse. If you say as a paraphrase, or let's say Aukamakal, right, meaning that the Quran in this verse indicate this, then to me no problem. But if it says like it's make a quote and then surah number, chapter number, it somewhat imply that it is direct quote from the Quranic verse, which I don't like. Even the initial point where David Wood says ... right? Because personally, the way I do, meaning for example in my presentation, in my slides, I always do it like that, so that people know that the verse is longer. This is a portion of the verse, not the complete verse. Not that it is taking things out of context or the meanings shifted, but for clarity, meaning that, okay, if you want to look it up, there's a longer verse, but I'm focusing on this part here, right? So for transparency. So I have that habit and I have that preference. Hence, although it doesn't take, from what Sheikh Uthman is saying about the accuracy of the point, that's still there, as he has pointed out, meaning that, to put it simply, when you say murder innocent people, obviously we understood that that is not including the context of crime, punishment, etc., because that is not within that killing of innocent people, right? So that's a specific issue. So yeah, that is valid. But I'm not sure, I haven't have the pamphlet and how it is being presented, but generally speaking, I myself like to be as accurate as possible in presenting Quranic verse.
So, like I said, when you translate from one, and that's why we always keep the Quran in Arabic, to know the original text, to always look at the original verbiage, right? When you translate, everything has to give the meaning, right? So whoever translated that saw that the word innocent would then take away those that were guilty of murder or causing terrorism or whatever else, fitna in the land. So they translated it with the word innocent there. Okay? And as I said, I don't know which translation they're using, but they did not cut anything out. That's the way they understood the verse and translated it. Now, if you don't like that translation, that's perfectly fine. You can email them and say, hey, I prefer the translation, not a problem.
Well,
but don't say they cut anything out, because they didn't. That's the way they translated it.
So they translated with this long exception clause as just innocent.
Yeah, but that is an exception, right?
I would say you need to put something in there to indicate that you're putting it out. Otherwise, people think they're getting a direct quotation.
Let me explain this to you.
Okay? Well, I haven't even gotten to the point yet.
Hold on, bro. About the innocent part. I thought this was the point, but okay. So when you have translations, we have like Mohsen Khan, who is a very literal, exact translation. For each word, he puts like 3-4 letters in, right? Then you have Sahih International, you have Dr. Mustafa Khattab, you have others who took to be more the meaning of the verse, because we always remember, if you want to get the original as it was revealed, we have it in Arabic. Unlike the Bible, which the earliest manuscripts are in Koine Greek, not in Aramaic, we have the original Arabic. So if you want to go back and research the meaning and the depth and the exact wording, you have it. But if you want to look at it in English, we always say this is the meanings of the translations to give you the gist of the Quran. Okay. So if you prefer a different translation, I would, again, I didn't publish this, but feel free to message the one who published it and say, hey.
The point is, when you take it in these two verses together in context and how people understood them.
You're assuming people understood them. I know, because you have a bias in your mind in understanding, unfortunately. Right?
We'll see.
Okay, go ahead.
So you have verse 32.
Okay.
And then we have verse 33.
Okay.
And again, this is quoted to show that Islam doesn't allow terrorism.
Sure.
It says, indeed, in the translation you guys are handing out, indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against God and his messenger
Yeah.
and spread mischief in the land
Yeah.
is death, crucifixion, cutting off their hands and feet on opposite sides, or
Excellent.
exile from the land.
Yes.
This penalty is a disgrace for them in this world, and they will suffer tremendous punishment in the hereafter.
Excellent.
As for those who repent before you seize them, then know that God is all forgiving, most merciful. All right.
Good.
So the very next verse talks about killing people for certain certain
For what?
penalties. Certain penalties.
For what?
There is making war. There's the crime of making war
Against
God,
Allah and His messenger.
and his messenger, and for the vague crime of spreading mischief.
Did you
in
say
the
the
land.
vague crime?
I say vague crime.
But you just added that into the verse.
no. I said
Does
no,
it say vague?
I'm saying it's a vague crime.
You're looking at the verse and adding your own wording.
David
Okay,
Wood is
there you
saying
go.
it's a vague crime.
Uh,
I say
because-
that
because David-
Iran just executed.
Let me.
just executed
Now,
a
thank you,
man, and the
David
crime is
Wood,
this.
for ending your. Anyway, whatever you want to say. So let me just explain it. You're saying it's vague because you're ignorant, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a advice, because you don't understand tafsir of what Facade fil ard means. But let me finish.
I know the historical background. If you're going
What
to
is
talk
it?
about
What is it?
Is that the one where the guys came and they converted to Islam? And that isn't. I have read that in the commentaries.
Which
And
commentary did you read?
You're saying that's not the background. The guys who came
Let
from
me- let
Uqal
me
and
ex-
Muhammad told them to
that's-
drink some stuff,
that's-
and then they killed a guy, and then and they had to be
that's
slaughtered.
one
and their eyes were
hadith.
burned out with nails.
That's one hadith about a people who tricked the Qurra and took them and massacred them and murdered them. But Facade fil ard has been explained by Ibn Abbas, by the companions, by the Prophet ﷺ. One of the things is banditry and rape. Are you paying attention, or are you?
I agree.
Doing so. Okay, good. So it's not vague at all, because if you looked at the tafsir of it, the explanation of it, which David Wood didn't take the time to do, that's why he thinks it's vague, then you would have known that there are particular crimes that bring these punishments, and they are not regular crimes. They are when you, for example, rape and pillage and massacre people, then no doubt that you are no longer an innocent person. That's not terrorism. If we say, for example, if you kill somebody in Texas, you'll be put to death for killing somebody, we don't say the state of Texas is a terrorist state. That is a punishment for a crime.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not vague. You just
get all
don't know
of
the
that.
context of it.
All right. So this is the commentary of Ibn Kathir here.
Okay, excellent.
So Allah said next, the recompense of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and do mischief in the land is only that they shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides, or be exiled from the land.
Okay.
And then we have the commentary. Wage war mentioned here means oppose and contradict, and it includes disbelief, blocking roads, spreading fear in the fairways, and so on.
Now,
So you have Ibn Kathir.
So you paused there, right? So keep
he's,
going.
He's
right,
listing
right,
things.
right,
You're
right.
opposing and contradicting Islam.
But that's not all, right? Keep going.
Right, it's not, you have, if I say that here are 10 crimes and you can be sentenced to death for
Excellent.
them, you don't have to commit all 10.
This is again your misunderstanding here, because you don't understand how tafsir is done, right? When you do tafsir, you explain the crime and then you give other aspects that are related to it, right? In Arabic, that's why if you get the Arabic, there'll be a wow. You know what a wow is? Yeah, so there is waw al-atf, right? So regularly, for example, if somebody disbelieves, are they to be killed? No. So that is not the ayah. This is not even about murtad. This is not even the hukm for murtad. This is not apostate ayah. You know that, right?
I'm saying you're correcting some people, because Ali Dawa, when he was threatening the apostate prophet,
Okay. He used this ayah?
he used spreading corruption in the land.
He used
says
this
by-
ayah? He did not.
He used spreading corruption
You're putting
in the
words
land.
in Ali Dawa's mouth now,
Ali
right?
Dawa said,
Okay, look.
said people,
Ali,
no. Let me clarify what I'm saying. He said, I don't know where he's getting it if he's not getting
is
it.
he your sheikh?
No, I'm pointing out that there are people calling for people's deaths. So if they're misinterpreting something, they're misinterpreting it in the same way I'm misinterpreting it. And they would need to be corrected much more than you would need to correct me.
Excellent.
So the idea here is, Ali Dawa says that people like you who leave your religion and then spread it, causing corruption in the land, the Islamic death penalty would be applied to you.
Sure.
So he says that. So he's including that in
But
there.
he didn't use this ayah.
He said corruption in the land.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to say. What verse is he getting it from?
let me clarify this to you, okay? Because see, I don't know what Ali Dawa said. You're bringing this here. I'd have to watch his video and speak to him, right? But This ayah was, I guarantee you, was not the ayah he referenced. Spreading corruption, Facade fil ard, has many forms, many ayat, many ahadith. Which one did he use in the context? We can't discuss because I haven't heard it. But you, David Wood, are misunderstanding the ayah, because this punishment is not for the murtad only. This has to do with banditry, as you were reading and then you stopped, right? And this is why this particular punishment of being crucified and so on is not the one for murtad. You know that, right?
I'm saying
Apparently not.
No,
right?
because I believe that corruption in the land
has many different forms.
Spread corruption, because notice it gives a bunch of different penalties as well.
Right.
So I'm interpreting that as there are all sorts of different crimes you can commit, and there are going to be different penalties.
And how would you know for what crime is what? Sure.
I think anything.
And how would you know for which crime would you give what punishment?
You go to the sources.
Excellent. What sources would you go to?
You go to the Quran, the Hadith, and so on.
Excellent. What Hadith did you read about this ayah? None.
I'm reading the commentaries.
This is Ibn Kathir. It's not a Hadith book, right? It's a tafsir book. What Hadith? Read from your English summarized translation here.
The only one
what Hadith does he give?
Was the people who come from Yukul or some. I think some said Urania.
When they came, what did they do?
No, this is where the disagreement is arising. It seems you're interpreting it as if a verse is revealed in the context of there.
Yes.
That's the only situation it could apply in.
No, I did not.
Whereas I'm reading it as corruption in the land. You can pack all kinds of stuff in there. Again, Iran just executed a journalist, and the crime was mischief in the land. I believe it's on the books in Pakistan. As far as I think mischief in the land is in Pakistan. Definitely in Iran.
Okay, so the problem you're having is you're packing a lot of things into a word you don't understand even, right? So when you're talking about Iran, Iran does many things that are not Islamic. That's not an example for us, and you continuously said that earlier.
If you're saying they're wrong, that's fine.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Okay.
That's easy.
I'm not convinced they're wrong. That's why I'm bringing it up.
So you think mut'a is okay, like temporary marriages and all that stuff they do?
No, I don't think it's okay.
Okay, so they're wrong.
I'm saying I don't disagree with their interpretation.
Did they use this verse particularly, or are you putting that in there?
We're sentencing you to death for corruption in the land. This is the only verse I'm aware of.
But then you're ignorant. There are many other ayat about Facade fil ard, and there are many ahadith about it, and there are many different forms of it, each one having different penalties. And when you wanted to understand that, get the tafsir called Tabari, for example. Tabari actually lists out the ahadith on this issue. When I tell you that you do need to look at the context of the ayah, should be very easy for you to understand that when a certain verse is revealed, to look at the context is important. But also the ahadith that explain what type of fasad will have what punishment. That's why we have books on hudud that explain that if, for example, you're causing corruption by playing music in the street, nobody's saying that you should be killed and crucified and cut, even though that can be technically considered fasad. You're throwing rave parties or whatever, right? But if you take your, I'm not going to say ignorant, what's a polite word? I don't want to be rude to you. Uninformed way of understanding.
And so on.
Well, but you don't understand Ibn Kathir, that's a problem.
Wage war means oppose and contradict.
Right.
And in other words, it can be all kinds of things.
Right, but what are those things?
Opposing and
so read the rest of Ibn Kathir. Why'd you stop?
He gives a long list of these things.
Read it.
He says
you brought it up. Read it.
He says waging war means opposing and contradicting.
But what does that mean, opposing and contradicting? Let's say you don't agree.
If I'm opposing and contradicting Allah in a Muslim land with a caliph,
so
that wouldn't fall under that?
Not necessarily, right? So it depends on what you're doing and how you're carrying it out. For example, when certain caliphs made certain rulings and people disagreed, even amongst the Sahaba, right? They were companions. I'll give you an example. Uthman ibn Affan, are you paying attention or you're zoomed out? Okay, good. Uthman ibn Affan was a Khalifa, right? Yep. He was in Mina and he made 4 units of the prayer instead of 2 as a traveler. Okay? Ibn Mas'ud, he told him, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you should make 2 because you're a traveler. Uthman, he's opposing what the caliph did. Uthman had his own deduction. He felt he was a resident, so he did. Now here, does that mean, because he's opposed the caliph, does that mean that people are going to say you should cut him up and kill him? No. This is where you don't understand what Facade fil ard means, right? Facade has many different forms. Some of them, you can have a disagreement with the Khalifa, not a problem. As long as you keep it respectful, you're not calling for killing, uprisings and revolutions and things like that. No problem with that. And you see some of the companions when Marwan was the Khalifa. I'm trying to help you so you understand the difference between different types of fasad. When Marwan was the Khalifa, some companion, when he gave khutbah, they got up in the khutbah while he's giving the sermon. And when he raised his hand, they said, may Allah destroy your two hands. Right? Why did you do this? It's a bid'ah. Right? Another companion, he held him when he wanted to give the sermon before the prayer in Eid. But that doesn't mean that they're killed. Okay? But if you're calling for revolutions, you're calling for killing, you're calling for assassinations, this is the kind of fasad you're taking people, as a hadith that you quoted and apparently don't understand, that you come, you're not Muslim, it's not about Islam and you're murtad. You take a people and say they're going to come teach Quran, and then you massacre a people for no reason, you murder and massacre people, then this fasad will bring this kind of punishment. Not all fasad. Are we clear?
Yeah, but we have
okay,
that's
good.
not the disagreement.
Okay, well, I'm glad at least that cleared up.
Yeah, so I think, let me try and clarify the issue.
This is Dave schooling 101 today.
Let me try to clarify the issue here.
All right.
When you're going to call for the death of people, seems like you should be pretty precise.
We are
in what's
very.
So I think from how many minutes Sheikh Uthman keeps checking the watch, and in the end he have to rush back, right? So this is 40 minutes till the end,
right? Yeah, but then in the Quran, Allah's eternal speech, and he brags throughout the Quran about how clear his speech is.
It is.
His speech is very clear. And the speech is that you can kill, crucify, chop body parts off of, or exile people for the crime of corruption in the land. And then there's opposing and contradicting, which is how you would declare war on Allah. You're not, I mean, it's not like you're going up and fighting Allah, right?
They're not opposing or contradicting. Let me explain it to you. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
So, if that's what you're saying, right, and you lay this, and this is Allah's eternal clear speech, and I say, look, it says you can, in the very next verse, after the verse you quote to show that Islam doesn't allow terrorism,
which is true,
it says there's all these people that you can kill for spreading corruption in the earth.
Yes.
Then what does that entail?
Excellent.
And your response is, well, you have to go to this, you have to go to that, you have to look into this.
Yes.
And just imagine a parallel situation, right? Imagine that Joe Biden comes out tomorrow, and he says, we have to
stop terrorism.
We have to.
What does terrorism mean? Who's a terrorist?
Let's say he says something.
Anybody
like,
who you think the terrorist can be killed. You know what you're saying is wrong, bro. Come on.
Notice. We have an idea of what terrorism is.
What's the idea? Who's the terrorist?
If he says
wait. You have an idea of a terrorist. Is tomorrow a right-wing extremist who calls for killing Muslims a terrorist?
Yeah.
You think they should be all arrested if they call for killing Muslims?
Yes.
Put in jail?
Yes.
All right. Hey. Be careful, you might get yourself arrested, bro. Take it easy. All right. I know. I'm just saying. Okay. So now, are there people that would disagree with you that that's terrorism?
I mean, terrorism usually has a definition.
Are there people?
It's either committing violence
or
threatening violence for the purpose of spreading or enforcing an ideology on.
Excellent. So, if somebody says that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, like some of your counterparts on, I don't know which side of the aisle you're on, when the Republicans have said, right? So would you consider that terrorism now? See, you're not clear.
No, I'm saying, I wouldn't say the organization. I would say if an individual goes and kills someone or something like that,
or threatens
ideology, that's a terrorist.
Or threatens it.
That's true of Republicans, that's true of Democrats.
So if the Proud Boys call for killing of, let's say, Hillary Clinton, that's a terrorist that can be arrested for lock her up or something like that, right?
If you say lock her up or something like that, if you say
that's terrorism.
It depends. If you say she's committed a crime, she should be locked up.
So,
if you say we need to kill her because we disagree with her political views or something like that, I would consider that terrorism.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are there people that would disagree with you?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So then it's not explicitly clear. Then there have to be laws explaining what is meant by terrorism. Because your David Wood's interpretation may not be David Duke's. That may not be Farrakhan, and what's the other guy, Jackson? What's the dude, man? Jackson, the guy who Al Sharpton, what's the other guy? Jesse Jackson, right?
Okay.
Their interpretation of terrorism and David Duke's and yours are going to be different.
Okay.
So when we as a country say, hey, we need to condemn terrorism and terrorists need to be arrested, who is and who isn't a terrorist is not going to be clear from that.
Okay.
So when Allah says that Facade fil ard, then this is explicit, it's clear. But when you want
Not clear enough,
let me
because there are people
let me explain it to you. Bro. You're speaking just like those so-called Quraniyun. Just because they're ignorant doesn't mean that the ayah is not clear. Okay? So when Allah says Aqimus Salah, establish the prayer, that's an explicit verse, no doubt to its clarity. But how will you implement that? Will you pray 4 ayah, 2, 4?
Okay, this is, I think, shifting towards how to understand the Quran. Is it clear? Because this is point, I think it's shifted from what was previously about Fasadul fil ard, right? In the transition towards the Quranic verse is not clear in that sense. If you have to refer to the hadith, etc., meaning that you cannot directly understand just by reading the Quranic verse. So it shifted to that discussion. So I think we'll go back a bit and cover this discussion in the next video. So the main part that we have covered early on in this question is what was it? It's early. I think it's killing one innocent man is like killing 1,000 lives, etc. And then so those 2 verses, and then I think this shifted towards the topic of whether the Quran, meaning, because I think David Wood's perspective or the point that he want to drive across is that if it is clear just by reading the verse itself, you shouldn't have to need to refer to other things to make it clear, right? So I think that's the point. So we'll bring this to the next video, inshallah. So with that, I'm losing my voice here. With that, thank you for watching. See you next time.